Good evening, I'm Gretchen Ho.
I'm Robbie Alampay. You're watching The Big Story. Less than a week since it was decided that Metro Manila will maintain Alert Level 3 status, the palace, in a surprise announcement Thursday evening, de-escalated the capital to Alert Level 2 beginning today until November 21st.
The loosening of mobility curbs comes at a time when cases have reached new lows since February, going below the 2,000 mark. But what does that downgrade entail? For starters, remember these numbers 70-50. 70% refers to the allowed capacity in outdoor venues, while 50% stands for the capacity in indoor establishments. Both saw a 20% increase from allowed operational capacity during Alert Level 3.
That rule applies to restaurants, personal care services, fitness centers, movie houses, and even karaoke bars. Yes, you heard that right. Establishments with voice or wind instrument performers can now open. So that would include clubs, concert halls, and theaters. Same goes for tourist attractions.
And for those with celebrations, capacity is also increased. This applies to weddings, birthdays, and other social gatherings, even church attendance and contact sports.
Casinos, however, will remain closed. Same with cockpits, lottery and betting shops, and other gaming establishments. One major difference under Alert Level 2 is that minors are now finally allowed in commercial establishments.
No wonder malls were brimming with renewed activity on day one of the ease restrictions. And Mon Gualvez has the big story.
More people flocked to malls today, the first day of Metro Manila's downgrade to Alert Level 2. Kids were also thrilled to be able to go out again. 5-year-old Stephen was very excited to visit the arcade again, but he was not allowed in as operators await official word from the IATF.
Yung mga bata, nung nalaman nila na open na yung mall ngayon, excited sila, oo. Parang naging inosente sila eh, parang naging back to basic sila na lahat na lang gusto nila i-hi and hello.
With an expected influx of visitors, mall operators assured that minimum health standards will be enforced.
Mag-a-add tayo dyan ng mga security marshals to check and implement yung social distancing, face masks are worn at all times.
Mall operators are expecting 40 to 50% increase of mall goers in the easing of restrictions in Metro Manila, especially this coming Christmas season. At the Quezon Memorial Circle, a number of children were also seen playing and roaming around. Though most of them are wearing face masks, a public service announcement is regularly played to remind all people in the park. Food establishments are also preparing for the bigger volume of customers. Restaurants and other indoor volumes are allowed to operate at 50% capacity for fully vaccinated individuals. This KTV bar in Malate has sanitized all rooms in preparation for its reopening after months of closure. The owner also assured that all of the employees are fully vaccinated. Some establishments also added tables to ensure social distancing.
Siyempre po, masaya kasi po magkakatrabaho na po kami ulit. Diba po, balik na po sa normal.
MMDA Chairman Ben Abalos said LGUs can provide additional guidelines for the public. The Metro Manila Council is expected to come up with uniform restrictions in the coming days. For News 5, Mon Gualvez, we are One News.
But how are hospitals feeling about the relaxed restrictions? Let's hear it from Jose De Grano, President of the Private Hospitals Association. Dr. De Grano, welcome to The Big Story.
Hi, Robbie and Gretchen. Good evening.
Good evening po.
Okay.
Ay, Doc, hindi naman natin mapapagkaila. Everybody has a level of excitement. The entrepreneurs, of course, businesses, mga pamilya, gusto kumain sa labas, pati mga gusto magsimba. But how do you feel at the front lines?
Well, because of the continuous decline in the number of cases, okay naman. And then there's still a little bit of the congestion of our hospitals as regard the COVID cases. Now, I think we really have to, perk up the economy, as they say, But still, we just have to strictly follow the minimum health standards. Because let us all remember, the threat is still there.
So we're hoping for the best but preparing for the worst. In terms of preparing for the worst, how prepared are we in terms of resources? Not just, gaya nga po sabi niyo, lumuluwag, but the age-old problems natin sa mga ospital, particularly pagdating sa human resource, ready po tayo dyan.
Yes, of course. The hospitals have more or less they have a respite for a few weeks, and then but still, if you will note the same number of let's say 30,000 active cases in February, we only had around 2,000 hospitalized people, but now we are still having around 9,000 plus in the hospital. So still. We have to be careful of that. For me, it's still a guarded condition or a guarded prognosis for us.
Speaking of being guarded, how is the situation in hospitals outside of NCR po? I mean, the farther we get from urban centers, how are hospitals and health centers doing?
Well, more or less, everything is continuously declining also. The hospitals are already decongested in other areas. So the only problem, the difference between NCR and the other regions is we have a higher percentage of vaccinated people in NCR.
Okay, Dr. De Grano, maraming salamat po. With restrictions being relaxed, should we expect the same on the use of face shields? The Health Department wants another week to evaluate its use. In today's Laging Handa briefing, DOH Undersecretary Maria Rosario Vergere said that while she supports the easing of the face shield policy, more evidence is needed to properly make the recommendation before the IATF. But in Iloilo City, Mayor Jerry Treñas has issued a new executive order nixing the city's current face shield ordinance. For now, Vergere is urging patience on the matter.
Continuously evaluating therapeutics, diagnostics, at saka ito po mga face shield at face mask, kung ano po ang dulot nito na benepisyo para sa ating kababayan with regard to protection against COVID-19. So ngayon po, nire-evaluate nila lahat ng existing evidences at pag lumabas na po ito, magkakaroon na po tayo ng appropriate recommendation for the face shields.
These are the other big stories tonight. Government is now considering making vaccination mandatory, well, at least for the vulnerable and those working in face-to-face settings. That move comes at a time when willingness to get vaccinated is at an all-time high. The latest SWS survey shows 64% of Filipinos are open to getting their COVID shot. And a college student who died after trying to recover her laptop during a fire was honored by her favorite band, Ben&Ben. These big stories after the break.
Good evening. You're still watching The Big Story. I'm Robbie Alampay.
And I'm Gretchen Ho. In an effort to help vaccination pick up steam outside NCR, government is now studying making inoculation mandatory.
Nothing's final yet, but the goal is to require it among the vulnerable sectors and those working in face-to-face settings. Greg Gregorio with the details.
Government is now mulling making vaccination mandatory. Vaccine Carlito Gov't said they are now recommending this to the president.
We have to implore yung massive vaccination. We are recommending it, and also the private sector is also with us.
The move has been gaining support among Filipinos.
May layo tayo sa mga sakit nga para maproteksyonan ng mga katawan natin.
Mas okay siya dahil sa chances na maging immune ka sa sakit na yan is getting higher.
Importante yon, sir, kasi para masigurado natin na ligtas yung kami na mga nagsiserve sa kanila.
Even the Health Department, which pushed back in the past, is now supporting mandatory vaccination.
Kailangan we will reach that certain protection across the population, no? Yung tinatawag na herd immunity o yung population protection. Dito po pumasok yung pag-uusap tungkol sa mandatory vaccination.
But should it be made mandatory, the DOH clarifies it will only be for vulnerable senior citizens and those working in face-to-face settings. But the mandate will require a law. That's why the Justice Department is now studying how to make possible. Vaccination remains slow outside NCR, which has inoculated 88% of its population. Regions like Barm, Bicol, Socsargen, Mimaropa, and the Zamboanga Peninsula are lagging behind.
Dapat ready yung ating mga areas to receive some of the vaccine. Now we are giving targets para maka-achieve ng at least 1 million to 1.5 million per day.
The DOH plans to conduct a 3-day national vaccination program by the end of the month.
We are going to expand vaccination sites. Maglalagay po tayo sa mga department stores, sa mga common areas. Maglalagay din po tayo sa iba't ibang mga lugar kung saan patuloy na pumupunta ang mga tao. We are also enjoining and we have already coordinated with the different medical societies para matulungan po tayo dito.
Operational guidelines are being ironed out, while LGUs, private sector, and NGOs have also been met for the planned mass vaccination. For News 5, Greg Gregorio, we are One News.
Should that push through, it will be at a time when willingness to get vaccinated is quite high. In a September SWS survey, willingness rate has jumped to 64% from just 55% in June. Among those open to vaccination, 35% have already received at least one dose. The 23% say they will surely get themselves vaccinated, while 6% will probably get the shot. 19% admit to still being uncertain. 4% say they will probably not get the shot, while 14% have outright said no.
Back to the relaxing of restrictions, more destinations are opening up for leisure travel in the Philippines as authorities order a freeze on airfare surcharges. Mobile journalist Pamela Vasquez gives us a front seat to this story.
As NCR and nearby areas slide down to alert level 2, more holiday destinations in the provinces are opening up. Cebu Pacific announced that 21 out of its 33 destinations are now accepting vacationers. The list includes places that don't require RT-PCR test for fully vaccinated individuals, including Bohol, Cebu, Clark, Dumaguete, and Misamis Oriental. In a separate announcement, AirAsia Philippines said leisure travelers may now fly to Puerto Princesa, Iloilo, Bacolod, Davao, and Tacloban with them. These destinations only require vaccination cards. Malacanang says it's already studying the possibility of allowing foreign tourists to enter.
Pag-aaralan natin ang karanasan ng Thailand at kung talaga naman pong meron tayong population protection, wala naman po sigurong basihan para hindi tayo magbukas.
Thailand and other countries in Asia are beginning to reopen their borders for tourism. But the daily passenger limit here remains at 4,000. The Civil Aeronautics Board is pushing for this to be raised.
Umaasa tayo na sa mga susunod na linggo, sana ay tumaas pa ito at maging 5,000 uli or even more, lalo na sa panahon na ito ng Christmas season.
Otherwise, CAP says it will prepare chartered flights to cater to many OFWs trying to come home.
Nakahanda kami magkaroon ng special flights, charter flights kung kinakailangan dahil sa ngayon ay meron pa ring limitasyon ang arrival.
The board has already ordered a freeze on passenger fuel surcharges for both domestic and international flights until the end of the year. That means airfare should stay steady despite the spike in fuel prices. Mobile journalist Pamela Vasquez, we are One News.
The Commission on Higher Education has allowed limited face-to-face classes for all degree programs in Metro Manila and other areas under Alert Level 2. Chairman Popoy de Vera says they will allow up to 50% capacity for all courses, but this is still up for approval of LGUs. The Health Department, CHED, and local government will ensure that these institutions follow the guidelines for the conduct of physical classes. Among these, the vaccination of students and faculty, retrofitting of facilities as well. De Vera is hoping to implement this by the second semester.
For the big story in sports, the Philippines will be hoping that boxing and weightlifting will still be included in the 2024 Paris Olympics. This as the two disciplines are in danger of being stricken out from Paris due to governance problems. International Olympic Committee President Thomas Bach said that a decision would be made on whether or not boxing and weightlifting would be played in the quadrennial event. This could be a big blow for the Philippines should the two events not be included in 2024. After all, the country's 4 medals during the 2020 Tokyo Olympics came from both sports. Meanwhile, good news for sports enthusiasts. Contact sports are now allowed in Metro Manila under Alert Level 2. According to IATF guidelines, under Alert Level 2, contact sports shall be allowed to operate should it be given approval by the LGU where such games shall be held. The maximum capacity for indoor venues will be at 50%. As for outdoor venues, the maximum capacity will be at 70%. Individuals in NCR can now resume their sports activities after a long hiatus due to the pandemic. Time for another quick break. When we return. Now, who wouldn't want to wake up and find a luxury car in our garage? That's what a formerly Biologicals executive claims during the Senate's latest hearing on the Health Department's spending of COVID funds. And Ben&Ben paid a fitting tribute to a college student who died trying to save her laptop and her college files in it during a fire. More details after the break.
Good evening. You're still watching The Big Story. I'm Robbie Alampay.
And I'm Gretchen Ho. A stockholder of Formerly Biologicals, not to be confused with Formerly Pharmaceutical, was quizzed by senators over her luxury cars.
Meanwhile, senators have also ordered the arrest of former Budget Undersecretary Christopher Lau after he snubbed the panel hearing for the 4th time. Pat Mangune with the details.
From engaging in business despite holding a tourist visa since 1999 to amassing several properties and businesses, former presidential advisor Michael Yang became the subject of Senate Blue Ribbon Chairman Richard Gordon's ire during the panel's hearing. Despite Yang's denials, the senator wants tax records and visa violations checked.
Bisita ka ng bansa as a tourist. Dinilate mo yun, hindi ka nagbabayad ng buwis. Wala ka rin kaon dahil wala kang nakukuha sweldo, tapos bigla na lang dumating. Nagkaroon ka ng permanent residence visa. Dami ng pera, pumasok na yung Clark, pumasok na yung mga bahay sa Forbes, lahat. So, paano kita papaniwalaan? And that is to go.
But what puzzled Gordon more was the luxury car registered under Formerly stockholder Rose Nono Lin.
Ayan yung 8.8 million na Lexus, right? Natagpuan mo na lang ba sa garahe yan? O ikaw bang bumili niyan?
Natagpuan ko po yan sa garahe po namin. Dahil hindi po ako mahilig sa sasakyan. Okay na po sa akin basta po tumatakbo at may masakyan po o papunta po sa opisina.
Formerly is one of 45 companies contracted to supply face masks, face shields, and PPEs. Senate Minority Leader Franklin Drilon now wants a copy of all the firm's income tax returns. That's after COA reports showed that the over 170 million pesos in taxes remitted in 2019 to 2020 is way below the total purchase of 40 billion pesos. To make matters worse, BIR consultant Mon Abrea found a huge discrepancy in Formerly's financial statement. It only declared to BIR 3.8 billion pesos in purchases when audits showed 7.2 billion pesos. Records also had several material misstatements.
Wala pong na-deklara na supplier or amount ng purchases sa records na pinorward ng BIR.
So ano pwedeng panggalingan yan? Pwedeng namemeke sila na nag-supply sila, bidayara lang sila para lang makuha yung pera pero wala talagang dineliver. Pwede ba yan?
Posible, Mr. Chairman. Normally po pagka talagang walang supporting documents, either nilagay lang po nila para mapababa ang buwis or hindi po talaga totoo ang purchases, Mr. Chairman.
Former Budget Undersecretary Lloyd Christopher Lau snubbed the panel hearing for the 4th time, prompting Senate President Tito Soto to sign an arrest order against Lau. For News 5, Patricia Mangune. We are One News.
Some legal experts believe that petitioners seeking the cancellation of Bongbong Marcos' certificate of candidacy should abandon their arguments on moral turpitude. Instead, they see better odds with the claims of violation of the Internal Revenue Code. Mobile journalist Jacob Lazaro gives us a front seat to this story.
Legal experts have debated on whether presidential candidate Bongbong Marcos committed a crime involving moral turpitude when he failed to file his income tax returns from 1982 to 1985. The Omnibus Election Code disqualifies candidates convicted of moral turpitude, but some election experts say people may be barking up the wrong tree. Election lawyer Buko de la Cruz says candidates convicted of moral turpitude are only disqualified for a period of 5 years from their sentencing, which in Marcos's case was in 1997. The truth test of Marcos's qualification to run, de la Cruz says, rests on another less-known law, the National Internal Revenue Code of 1977.
And under Section 252 of that law, that carries with it an accessory penalty of perpetual disqualification. So, dapat din-disclose niya. Yung next na question dun sa final and executory na ba? The answer is yes eh.
In fact, Monson believes the petitioners make a stronger case for his family's non-payment of 23 billion in estate tax liabilities since 1991. Bongbong Marcos is the court-appointed administrator of the Marcos estate. The tax liability was affirmed with finality by the Supreme Court in 1999, and the petitioners argue that the liability has ballooned to 203 billion because of 30 years of fines, interests, and subcharges.
That's the case of moral turpitude, because and they refuse to pay. How much is it? Somebody calculated it's over 200 billion
nasa 203 billion. Monsod said there's no reason for the Commission on Election to take more than a month to rule on the petition, saying that once the conviction is proven to be with finality, canceling his candidacy becomes merely ministerial. But Monsod and Bukoy expects the matter to be elevated to the Supreme Court, where it can become anyone's ballgame. Mobile journalist Jacob Lazaro, we are One News.
Learn more about Vice Presidential aspirants Representative Lito Atienza Jr. and former Congressman Walden Bello. Watch the Meet the Vice Presidential's Economic Reforms in the New Frontier Forum on Saturday, November 6 at 7:30 p.m. Catch it live on One News and Signal Play. Watch the replays on 1PH and Radyo 5 92.3 News FM tomorrow.
In world news, another first as the United Kingdom approves the game-changing COVID-19 pill Molnupiravir by U.S. drug maker Merck. A regulatory agency in the country recommended the drug to be used ASAP following a favorable test result. The approval of the first oral antiviral treatment for COVID is ahead of America's own regulatory clearance. No confirmation yet on the deployment of the drug, which will be branded Lagevrio. Just last month, the UK secured with Merck 480,000 courses of Lagevrio.
Melanie, kung nasaan ka man ngayon, pipiliin ka namin mahalin, alalahanin, at ingatan lahat ng mga naiwan mo dito, araw-araw.
Ben&Ben's Paolo paid tribute to a fan who died in a Quezon City fire last November 2. Paolo attended the wake of Melanie, a 21-year-old graduating student who rushed to their burning house to retrieve her laptop, but she got trapped and met her end. The band thanked Melanie for her bravery and compassion. They called her Liwanag, not only as a Ben&Ben fan, but also as a beacon of light toward her family and fellow students. Melanie's friend Elise also shared videos of Paolo's performance during the wake. Paolo opened with Dahilan, an ode to the band's departed friend.
Kung ang buhay ay biyayang balikan, bakit papunta pa lang ito'y tutuldukan?
The stripped version of their breakup song Leaves, meanwhile, gave a newfound message of hope.
And in the end, everything we have makes it worth the fight.
Nick Garcia, we are One News.
Meanwhile, Santa Claus must have come early for others in the form of a cyclist in Mexico, Pampanga. he just gave an 11-year-old boy a brand new bike. In the Philippine Star's report, Clark first met Angel in August during one of his bike trips. Since then, they have been bumping into each other. At one point, Angel shared his dream of having his own bike. That's when Clark started to raise funds for his little friend. And 3 months later, Angel's dream has turned to reality.
Di ba sabi mo gusto mo ng bike?
Nasaan na?
Gusto mo ng bike? Ayun o.
Alam mo yung nakakaiyak dito sa storya na to, si Angel, bago siya bigyan ng bike ni Clark, nag-stop over si Clark doon sa habang nagbabike siya. Si Angel nag-alok ng buko juice. Kala niya walang pera si Clark. Binigyan niya ng buko si Clark. Tapos nagulat si Clark kasi may pera naman siya. Kaya binalikan niya ng bike.
So lahat nagbibigayan.
Nakakatuwa talaga.
Kaya talaga saludo ako sa mga namimigay ng bisikleta.
Nakaka-inspire. I mean, we inspire each other. And whenever I see those stories, talagang natatouch ako ng sobra-sobra. So, pagpapatuloy natin yung pamimigay ng bisikleta.
Oo, talaga naman simple lang. Gusto ng mga tao. Ika nga, gusto lang ng mga tao basta umaandar, di ba?
Oo, tama. Oo. Sana next time kotse naman. Mga Lexus, gano'n. But that wraps up today's big story. Catch us again on Monday, 8 p.m. on Signal Channels 8 and 250.
Please like our Facebook page, One News. For more in-depth analysis, visit our webpage, onenews.ph. Mask on.
Wash hands.
And stay safe, Philippines. I'm Robbie Alampay.
And I'm Gretchen Hall. We are One News. Have a good evening.